Got it. Okay, so just as what we're going over real quick with the meeting is, as Portia said, she had a last minute thing with work and just had texted me, could I do this? And so I'm gonna just say welcome. And Mary Liz, welcome to us. I am Lisa Pruitt. I am not Portia Williams, but I had to sign on as Portia to get on because for some reason it wasn't going to let Lisa Pruitt in. As far as business items, we're still having virtually meetings for safety's sake, and we're trying to get together as soon as possible. We are continually monitoring the situation. I know that 65 and over and extra health conditions who've had COVID, have had the Pfizer vaccine are now eligible to get a booster. So that was good news, I guess. There's a misconception, there seems to be, that we're not going to do any more shows as far as showing our work and doing holiday and spring, and that's not true. We are, but we're waiting on we have a doctor and a nurse on our board, and they're both erring on the side of caution, advising that, and because they're working the front, and we know that they know best. Ruby's a scientist, she knows what's going on, and we're just being extra careful. So there's an exploratory committee that's taking care of some of those issues, and they're looking into doing like a virtual show as well as a live show. Those they tend to be successful, maybe doing the virtual show just for 1 or 2 days and then the live show one day or whatever. But I am not on that committee. They will be taking care of that, and we will hopefully have more information the next time we have a meeting. And as far as anything else, we have not and won't. We have not said we're not going to have shows anymore. I don't know where that came from, but it's false. So are there any questions?
This is Janice, and I'm still trying to get my real face on there.
I know what you look like.
But I don't know what, because normally my big old mug is all over the screen, so I don't know why it's not on this. But I hadn't heard that about not doing any shows, but
Good.
I'm doing Kentucky, and we are skittish about it, but we're going to do it.
Okay.
It is outdoor, and so fingers crossed. But I did do the virtual last year with Kentucky and was very successful. But now it did go on for 3 months.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
So, but
yes.
I'm gonna say that it wasn't bad. It was very good. So
right.
Just
I had the same thing with Moss Rock last year. They combined it with Magic City, so it was Moss Magic. And again, the virtual show went for 3 months. So, it's extended. But once you're on there, you've already got your stuff, so why not? And I thought it was pretty well supported as far as like information getting out to the general population and people who were supportive of Moss Rock in the past. So that's just my take. I'm doing Love Park in a week, and I'm like you, I'm a little bit concerned, but we've been given all kinds of precautions to take, and the same thing with Moss Rock again. So, but they're outdoors.
Lisa, have you had I just started the booster. Have you had your booster?
I have not had my booster yet, but I cannot wait to get it.
Me either. Yeah.
I agree.
For it. Give me one every day. I don't care. I don't want to
I know.
overkill. Anyway, so is there anything else? I'm so glad you hadn't heard that rumor. This is good.
Mhm.
Yeah, and yeah,
I would never, yeah, I mean, that doesn't make sense anyway, so.
right, right. Yeah. Okay, so Carol,
No other business?
not that I have.
Okay. Yeah, I still have a tentative date on the calendar with Emmett O'Neill, but I'm going back and forth with room reservations and all of that. And
That's gotta be hard.
yeah. And of course, none of us know, but I really doubt it's going to be a wise idea to meet indoors anytime in the near future, personally.
Totally agree. Yeah,
So I know some businesses have told people to work from home until the new year
Yeah,
right.
on the side of caution. So it may be something that we want to consider, just sort of tabling all of the ideas for in-person meetings until 2022. But that's another piece of info.
Yeah.
Mary Liz, are you still around? Let me just
Yeah.
check.
There we go.
Oh,
I'm
you
ready.
are? Okay, so
Yeah.
Mary Liz, Mary Liz, I do apologize that we don't have a bigger audience for you, and that was just a clerical error on our part, and I'm sorry about that, because I know you're going to do a fabulous job, and we've been chatting at length for a few weeks and met via Zoom the other day, and Mary Liz is delightful. She's a teacher already. She does workshops at Forestall, and through her home, she has students. And she's a very busy mom of 3 and been a professional artist since 2006, I believe. Mary Liz, is that right?
I
And-
can't remember anymore. Long
She-
time.
Her expertise is in watercolor and pastel. And I specifically asked her to focus on pastel just because since I've been a member, we have not had a pastel artist do a demo. And I think that medium is fantastic. She specializes in people, pets, and places. So I love that. And I think you're going to do a landscape for us tonight, Mary Liz. Is that correct?
Yeah, I thought I would do one with a big sky because that's something I like to put in a lot of them, and that would be able to be done kind of quickly so we can get to some other details about pastels.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we will be eager to see what you produce here. Work your magic.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. And I certainly don't mind how many people are here. Anybody's great. So, so when I do my pastels and my watercolors, I like to use a surface that's really textured. So like for my watercolors, I prefer a canvas. And then for my pastels, I use pastel cards, which are kind of like fine sandpaper. And I'm not sure, feel free to ask questions anytime because I'm not sure how familiar you are with pastels and I don't want to be redundant or skip over something. So mine is it's a rough surface, but it's something that is, archival and isn't going to go anywhere. And then I'm going to tip my computer down to here and you let me know if I need to change anything so you can see, but you can see
that's good. Yeah.
all of my messy pastels. I like very creamy pastels. So my favorite brand are the Sennelier that are
Yes.
French, and they're very soft. So that combined with that pastel card means you can do lots of layers. And I use really vibrant, deep colors. So I did this one. If you can see that one, it's funny to do this on Zoom.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So
Yeah,
it
that
can-
is. It's very nice.
So it's not the same as what you might think of pastels where it's a light, soft and, smoothed out kind of artwork. You can really get a lot of texture. So we will get started. And like she said, I usually do people, pets, and places. And part of that is that's what I like. And part of that is because I do have 3 kids and a job. So I pretty much just do commissions now instead of art shows. And I've kind of backed off. I haven't done a class or a workshop in a while because things got awfully busy. My oldest are teenagers and it's just interesting time. So commission, somebody says, can you draw my
Yeah.
dog or can you draw my kid? And I can do that on the weekend. But I really love sky. So I thought that would be a good one to start with. It's something that that I always add in when I can. So I always, yeah.
Can I ask you? I mean, I've only done this a few times, and I I wasn't very good at it. So, but it was like that you had almost did it backwards. Like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's totally what I say. Yes, I
Okay.
do feel like I start backwards.
Okay.
And I think I end up doing that with my watercolors too, which is kind of weird. Because I'll do it with a canvas where you can take some of the paint off. So I usually start with something really dark.
Okay.
And these pastels, the Sennelier pastels, have the darkest black, and so I love it. It's my favorite. So you know, normally wouldn't think, oh, I'm gonna do a sky, I'm gonna start with black. But I like to. So I'm gonna draw out and let me know if I need to move or adjust anything so that you can see. I'm just gonna draw out the bottom of my landscape real quick. And then I come in with some dark and just go ahead and put it over. You can probably hear it scratching.
Mhm.
And so I
That is
layer.
interesting paper. I mean, is that an arches kind of paper or?
It's actually Sennelier too. And you can, I also get the ampersand pastel boards, especially for large pieces, because I can do a 24 by 36 pastel. But if you do that on paper,
Whoa.
and you know, you're trying to give that to somebody or frame it and it's flopping around. So it's on like masonite with a coating, and it's also textured like the same. I prefer this pastel card because it's even more textured. There's also, I feel like I have it here, pastel ground that you can buy, the Golden makes.
Uh-huh.
And so you can paint that on anything. So when I did a really large piece and I painted that, and it gave it that same texture.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's so many things about pastels. Who knew, right?
Yeah.
Who knew? All right, so I put dark all over, and then I come in with the darker blues. And I'm kind of messy and speedy. I've gotten less messy though. I used to get it all over my face and in my ears. And then nobody would tell me. I go meet neighbors outside and I've got turquoise in my ear, on my cheek. So I've got much time. I'm wearing a white shirt because I don't get it on me anymore.
Oh, wow.
Great.
Good for you.
And you can, I don't know if you can see on there or not, but it starts to make a good bit of dust. It stays put. It doesn't, you know, fly around. It's kind of a heavier dust. But I am careful when I clean it up or knock it off my picture. I used to, when I started, I just blew it off and it just went everywhere. And I don't know what I was
Weird.
thinking. It was a terrible idea. All right, so these are my favorite colors and I use them all the time. It's just like a kind of an aqua color. And I always laugh because I'm pretty much self-taught with all of my art. My grandmother was an artist. This is her art desk I'm on right now. But when people ask me what the colors are, I just have like my own made up names because I wasn't ever like trained to be like, it's, you know, whatever blue, and it's just whatever I call it. Right. So I'm really looking in my pieces, I'm looking for the tints and the tones because you know, if you're mixing paint, you know which colors to grab to make it the color you want. So with pastels, I'm layering it to make the colors that I want instead. And I rarely, especially when I teach, I always say, don't rub it with your finger. Like I don't use blenders. The only time I touch it with my finger is if I'm doing something very soft, like a baby's face or something that really needs to be smooth. Otherwise, I just let the pastels blend.
Well, that is obviously one mistake I've been making because I used to use my fingers a lot.
When you can, and with this paper, if you started rubbing it, it would hurt eventually.
Okay. That makes
All right.
sense.
So I also like to put in this gold color. And so you really can kind of go adventurous with these because you're going to be able to layer. You see how much black has been covered up. So when I do portraits, you know, there's always a stage that's really funny because they have fuchsia and green and all these colors on their face. But I know in the end, when I blend it with the base color, that it's going to end up fine. And if if you're using regular pastel paper, that's not going to be the case because you can't put that much. It's sort of like with watercolor, you know, certain paper, that color is going to show through no matter what you do.
Does it ever reach a saturation point, Mary Liz?
I have made it pretty muddy a few times. That pastel board seems to get muddier than this. But with pastel board, I have washed it off in the sink.
Hmm.
And the only thing that was left was a little bit of the black outline, which covered up really easy with some more pastel. So that was kind of funny because then somebody had a picture under a picture and they didn't even know. Well, it was a surprise. Okay. So I got all sorts of things stuck in there. Now there is a color that I really love that I have run out of and I need to order it. It's a really light version of this aqua color. So I've got a harder pastel because that's the one I have. And I have a lot of brands and you can see that the harder one it's almost like a blender in a way, like it's rubbing the colors and kind of mixing them.
Okay.
And you know how different colors, like the pigments and stuff you use, have different qualities. So some pastels are going to be really, really creamy and soft, and some are a little bit rougher. And so after I've done it for a while, I kind of get a feel for which ones work well as the top layer, or some that I might want to, be able to remove a little bit of the pastel. And so this one is good because it's not laying down too much color, but it's kind of blending some of my sky. But without that dark under there, you just don't have quite the dramatic effect.
That looks so cool already.
It's
Yeah.
so fun. I just really love it. And I've kind of been leaning into the watercolor lately, just I don't know why, but I miss my pastels. They're so much more fun. Probably because I can spray it. I don't have to frame it in glass, because that is something about pastel is I always have to be careful with it and put it in, if I give it to somebody unframed, I have to put it in a mat and then in a, little sleeve so that it doesn't get smeared. You can fix these pretty easy though. When I started, I didn't, you know how you get a little more professional after a while, and I just would kind of stick it on cardboard with a little bit of tape and hand it to somebody, and they had some water like drip on it at their house when they were taking it to get framed. And but you can put it, like fix it, like they brought it to me and I just put some more pastel on it and it was fine. So they're not quite as fragile. Kind of makes me think of when I had babies and I thought they were going to break, and you're like, oh, you're fine. So it's all right. My kids have when they were little, they slung like a jacket on top of my art desk, and I had a big painting sitting there.
Oh.
I've had a cat like try to jump up in my window and then clawed down. I did the Spanish
Oh,
steps and it took up
wow.
my whole desk, and they clawed down it. And
Oh
just
my.
come in and touch it back up. We have a little house, so everybody's all in each other's business. That is why I don't paint with oils, because that would be terrible.
Is that still an aqua that you were using that's making it lighter?
Yeah, so it was a really, it's hard to see probably in here now, but it's a really
that's that tiny piece.
It's a tiny piece. My 9-year-old asked me if she could use my pastels one day and use the tiny pieces I don't use. I was like, I do use the tiny pieces. What do you mean? Okay, so now I'm gonna get a light one. All my mess. So this I also use on faces. So it's kind of a really light flesh tone. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that in there. And this is an example of one that's very creamy. You can see how much color it lays down as opposed to the others. So it's kind of fun too if you do a demonstration, because I think I'm talking so much. I'm like, I don't really know what it's going to look like, but we're going for it.
It looks nice.
It does. I mean, it really does look good.
Mhm.
So I'm really lightly using this, like barely touching the surface. And so it just picks it up in some places, and you can see how it's adding some texture. And it's kind of surprising what colors you can mix, because this, I would think a flesh color might look bad on top of blue, but it really works. And especially because it's soft. All right, so grand finale is when I get my white. And I'll peel some of this off. There we go. They kind of, they're so soft they will break.
Oh.
But it is better for me than trying to use a big piece, because that is more difficult. to just rub all over the place if you're holding a big thing. When I used to teach classes, people would be so nervous about breaking. I was like, just break it in half. It's gonna be easy. I'm like, I don't want to. You're gonna be happy.
See, that's just beautiful
It
already.
is, that is.
And I love the sense of like freedom you have with it. You know, it's all organic and it's just unfolding.
That's
Yeah.
a very good point too.
And I used to be so uptight. Like I was one like super detailed, use my pencil. That I tried to loosen up. And this is kind of where I found by accident that I could, because you're using a piece of chalk, but you can also get some really fine details like eyelashes and all sorts of things, even using a big chunk.
There's so much, I feel so much movement in it.
Yeah.
You know,
It is.
It is very freeing.
That's really pretty.
And I like, because I'm like doing it with my fingers, like I don't have the paintbrush in the middle of it. And when I do watercolors, I like it to let the water move things around and like kind of see what happens, and just kind of I think it takes some of my control out of it, because I would definitely like to have control. All right.
That is really pretty.
So can you see the buildup of
Oh, yes.
the dust and stuff on there too, like some of the pieces that have broken off?
Yeah.
So what I do when I get to that point, like when I'm drawing a face, like there comes a point where I'm like, I need to get this off, like it's kind of in my way. And so I take it and I move it up and we'll tip it carefully and kind of tap it.
Oh,
And so then there's my pile of dust up there, but it's cleaned this off. And I have a weird, how artists have funny little things. I have a piece of mat board and I just put it in a pile. But then all the dust is there. It's not anywhere else. It's not in my art room. It's not on me. There is also another pastel that Sennelier has. It's a bright white and it's even brighter than this white. And so I like to come back in with it, and you kind of have to like crush it in because I have little bitty pieces of it. But it'll highlight some other places, and I don't want to make y'all watch me do all the fine details. In normal life, I would probably sit here and look at the cloud and be like, oh, I think I'll put a little more there or something. But sometimes it's nice not to get hung up on things like that. All right, so we'll just say
that is really,
we're gonna give that sky a break.
That's amazing.
that's nice.
Right there. So then you come down here, and
It's
I
a
really
good touch to get rid of the dust too, because I've sat next to people doing this, and like you're talking about, it's all over the place, all over, and
Everybody.
I never have seen that done before. So
yeah, because they'll just blow it, and you get it all over your arm and all over the place. But like I don't have it anywhere on me except for my fingers. You do have to train yourself to keep your hand off of it. But there's a lady I knew once, and she had this acrylic, like it was like a bridge almost, and she could put it over her on either side so she could rest her hand on it.
yeah.
But I don't think my hand stays still long enough to rest anywhere anyway. All right, well, I'm gonna quit messing with that. All right, so then if I come down to the
Wow,
bottom, I'll start with the
that's amazing.
dark again.
It
If I
is.
do the same layering with the trees or whatever. I'm kind of making this up now because the picture, I was looking at a picture on my phone, but it's like the road by my house. And I was like, that's a pretty cloud. So this is not going to be a road because that wouldn't be as pretty. All right, you can see how dark that black is.
Mhm.
And I have never found a pastel that's as dark as that. It's my favorite. I love it. Okay, now I just
I would be so intimidated to lay that down first. That's amazing.
yeah,
Right.
it
Yeah.
feels kind of wrong. And I actually can't remember like why I did that. But whatever, I did it one day and it worked. And then I was like, oh, and so that's what I do. And I've got that same dark blue. I use it a lot. I like it.
And what's the kind of paper, the Sennelier, what kind of paper is?
It's pastel card.
So it's just called pastel
Yeah.
card.
Yeah,
like-
and you can get them in like book booklets and peel them
Oh.
out, but I just order these big sheets and then I cut them into the size that I want.
Okay.
So sometimes you have little pieces left like this one. And I used to do